heavy to carry on your own. Laura will play hymn number 330, The Arching Sky of Morning Glows. Please rise and stand if you are willing and able. Now we'll sing the children out with Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace.
Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Our opening words are For 5,000 Years or More by Matthew Johnson. For 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos. And they have spoken aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of air and earth, fire and water. They called the bear and deer. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways, or in ways that were new, but felt like the right thing to do. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of those heroes. They called them gods, and they were invoked, Vishnu and Kali, Elohim, Odin, and 100 million others. Every group of people, everywhere, they gathered to make sense of their lives and to make sense of their place in the cosmos, and they called these spirits to be present to them. And so do we. So do we. We gather this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best we are able. And we call ourselves to worship together, and we invoke the power and the wonder of life itself, that to which all those spirits of animals and memories of heroes pointed the way. We invoke that power, which is, we know, always around, always with us, but which we sometimes forget about. We forget that we are part of the whole of creation. We forget that we are stardust. We forget that we are capable of miracles. First among them, that we can love. We forget these things, so we invoke the power of existence so that we can remember, so that we can lift our eyes and open our ears to the true and beautiful. For 5,000 years or more, we have done this, in many tongues, in many ways. We have done this. And so we continue that ancient tradition in our way and in our time. And so let us now worship together. Now, please join me in welcoming our friend, Phillip Park Thomas, back to MBUUC to share insights and wisdom.
I'm going to borrow your microphone over here, but I'm going to move it. And I hope your board of trustees doesn't come chasing after me for rearranging the furniture. This is very participatory. I'd like as many as you are willing and able, if you're not able, I can understand, to join in a circle over here. This open space over here. If you've got to stand real close to each other, don't be afraid of one another. I'm assuming most of you folks know each other so that this kind of intimacy is not going to be too threatening. The direction over the screen is east. So obviously the opposite direction is west. Direction here will be north. Direction here will be south. This is important. First, as you stand in the circle, turn to the east, this way. From the east comes the rising sun. Just as a new day dawns, we are reminded of our own birth. We are continually being born, becoming newer people than we were yesterday. Turn to the north. From the north come colder winds, testing our bodies and our being. Through life's tests, we're made wiser and stronger. Adversity is often hard and unfair. How we face adversity is how we grow. When we face the north, we are reminded of that which builds us. Let us turn toward the south. From the south come warmer winds, springtime and summer, new hope, and growth itself. Turn toward the west. As the sun sets in the west, so we remind ourselves that one day our lives will set. We seek to face the end with courage and with comfort, that we have given life meaning by living authentically. We have lived. We have loved. We have found joy in spite of tears. Our time on this planet has been a gift. Each day that we have lived has been an act of gratitude. Turn toward the center. We now face one another in community. It is community that our journey called life has its deepest meaning, its most profound hope, its greatest challenges, greatest disappointments, greatest joys, and deepest love. Without community, we are incomplete. Without community, we are not who we are. In community, we are also brought together. Let us never lose this gift. Stand in silence for just a moment and contemplate your unity together. This ends the meditation for this morning. You may return to your seats. Ocio. Phillip Park Thomas, Donwada. Tohichu. Osta. Shalagia Sihuaniha. I will not continue speaking in Cherokee. I just said hello. My name is Phillip Park Thomas. How are you? I'm fine. Do you speak Cherokee? And if you were to answer authentically, you would say tla tla, no. This morning, I'm not going to give a traditional sermon or message. Instead, more of a series of vignettes. When I was asked several weeks ago if I would speak on Native American spirituality, my immediate reply was, there is no such thing. Not that there aren't spiritual perspectives, different understandings of the spiritual among various tribes, but there is no monolithic spirituality. I think when a lot of people think about Native American spirituality, they think about things kind of like this vague connection between earth and people and animals. And certainly there's that attitude in many of the tribal traditions. But there is no monolithic spirituality. In fact, what is spirituality? How do you define it? Anybody, give me a definition, your definition of spirituality. Any volunteers?
A connection to the divine.
Pardon?
A connection to the divine.
A connection to the divine. Does that mean that somebody who questions the existence of the divine or doesn't accept the divine has no spirituality? I would wager that the answer to that question should be that yes, people can have spirituality without an understanding of the divine. One of the things that among several tribes, and I'm not going to go through all 500 that are in the United States. Got that? 500 different cultures and traditions and perspectives in the United States. And in fact, if I were talking about spirituality and spiritual values among the various tribes, it's not even unified within tribes. Most of the tribes because of the way in which this country was settled, have been Christianized. So you'll find various forms of Christianity even within the tribes, depending on whether it was Catholics that got there first, or the Methodists, or the Baptists, or some other group. And I have my own perspectives on missionary work, which I don't want to go into here because I don't want to spoil the mood. But you also will find, even among the tribes, there are those who don't believe anything. They've moved away from the traditions and the traditional beliefs of their tribe and their culture. And then you'll find there are traditionalists. And even among traditionalists, there may be variances. So as we go this morning into the various, and at least into various ways of looking at that which is spiritual and understood, the first thing we need to understand is that we need to get away from that term, Great Spirit, because that's a missionary invented term. And most of the tribes didn't have this as their primary view. They didn't have a parallel God to the Christian God or the God of the Hebrew and Greek Testaments. Instead, they had a variety of spiritual beliefs and a variety of creation stories as well, sometimes within the same tribe. They knew how to talk in myth without having to worry about, is this literal? Is this history? Is this science? Because they asked, what does the story mean? And we have forgotten how to do that in our post-Enlightenment Western society sometimes. And so we understand that there are only two ways of looking at things, and it's a false dichotomy, that either things need to be taken literally or they need to be taken logically. And there is a meeting place somewhere in between sometimes. So much for my preaching. How do you like to meet that character on some evening? Coming out of your bathroom. That's a booger dancer. Next slide. Among the Cherokee, particularly the Cherokee of the eastern band of Cherokee who still reside in the Great Smoky Mountains area, there's what is known as the booger dance. Now, understand Cherokee mythology and Cherokee traditional religion. There was an understanding that there were numerous spirits in the world. Supernatural was very active in the way in which they looked at the world, but they didn't originally conceive of any God as we would. One of the creation myths, and there are several, one of the creation myths talks about a creator spirit, but not to be confused with God of the Bible at all. This creator spirit was moving through the various worlds and came upon this one place. And the spirit that was over this one place was Elohino, the earth, our mother. And this other spirit, some call the creator spirit, said to Elohino, I would like to plant a garden. Would you let me plant a garden in your world? And Elohino said, thank you for asking. You may plant a garden in my world. And of course, reminds us that the Cherokee, long before European settlement, raised their own crops, had their own gardens and fields. They were farmers and hunters. And so, this creator spirit planted a garden, and it became the world that we know as the earth. No Adam or Eve, and instead, Elohim said, I need someone to tend to this garden. So she looked into the sky. Notice it's a she. She looked into the sky and she saw the stars, and she said, I'd like to invite some of the stars to come down and live on this earth, in this garden that has been planted here. And some of the stars came down. And they were the first people. There's another Cherokee creation myth that is very different. At one time, the world was covered with great seas. And a little mud beetle went down to the bottom of the seas and found lots of mud. And there was a turtle swimming on the seas, and the mud beetle came up and put a dab of mud on the back of the turtle, and liked what the little beetle saw. By the way, the little beetle is female, again in this story. The little beetle goes back down to the bottom of the sea and brings up more mud and puts it on the back of the turtle until the turtle's back is covered with mud. And this mud became the first plains and mountains and eventually became the earth. And so the earth to this day is on the back of a great turtle. Now to the boogers. You'll notice that there's a booger mask here. You're probably wondering, when I talk about boogers, you think about a different kind of booger, don't you? Well, please, if you got to scratch your nose, be discreet today. But booger is also particularly among the Eastern Cherokee, and note that the Cherokee were divided during the Indian removals of the 1830s, thanks to Andrew Jackson, who got Congress to pass the Indian Removal Act. And most of the Cherokee who lived in the lower valleys and plains of Tennessee and Alabama and northern Georgia were forcibly removed to the Indian Territory, the first proto-reservation in the United States reservation system. It's now the state of Oklahoma. Those that remained went far into the hills, and you can still find them in places around the Great Smoky Mountains. They've kept some of the older traditions and dances. Boogers are mischievous spirits. You might think of gremlins, if you're thinking in terms of more of a European type parallel, though not exactly. And they can be scary. Sometimes they're almost demonic. But a lot of times they just make a lot of trouble. And so there is a tradition of carving booger masks. This is one. No two booger masks are ever exactly alike. And they're all grotesque, and some of them are a bit weird, and some of them have actual human hair. This one doesn't. You see, this one has horns on it. In the evening, and it's not a particular set evening of the year, usually though when it's in the warmer months, Community will gather around a campfire. And men will put on booger masks and come out of the woods and do a rather lopsided and crazy dance. They're representing the booger spirits. And they'll do all kinds of pranks and tricks. They'll flirt with the young ladies. What's spiritual about this? Because the booger spirit represents that which is scary and frightening, to put on the booger mask and do this dance and basically clown around. That's what it is. You get to laugh at what scares you. And so for the Cherokee, laughing at the boogers is a way of confronting that which is scary. And how many of us in our lives have things that cause us anxiety, cause us fear? The booger is a personification of all those things. And you get strength by being able to laugh at it. It may seem a far cry from the way in which we think of spirituality, but it is a kind of spirituality. Let's go to the next line. The Goshute, or the Goshute tribe, is a small tribe that lives in Utah. They speak a dialect of the Shoshone language. And of course, being out one of the western tribes, they're familiar with animals such as the coyote. Coyote, as he appears in several of the southwestern mythologies, is a trickster character. He's also featured in the Navajo mythology. Navajo call themselves the Diné people. But I can't tell you some of those stories because they're not fit for polite company. They're a bit bawdy. So I'll tell you the Goshute version instead. Coyote had a wonderful blanket that he wore around his shoulders. But one day it was terribly hot. Terribly hot. And he got tired of wearing this hot blanket. And he comes across a boulder that was sitting where he was walking, and he said to the boulder, "Here, take my blanket and keep it. I don't need it. It's too hot." And Coyote went on his way. But evening came and night came. The sun set. It was no longer hot. It was shivering cold. You ever have a night like that when you shivered in contrast to the way in which you sweated during the day? I think we've all been there, certain times of the year. And Coyote thinks to himself, boy, was I stupid. I gave up my blanket. So he goes back to where the boulder was, and the blanket is still on the boulder. And he takes the blanket away. He says, I need this blanket more than you need it. And he starts to walk away. Now it's at this point where I need your help. Because when I say the boulder rolls, I need you to make a sound like a boulder rolling. Karoom, karoom, karoom. Can I hear that now? Karoom, karoom, karoom. Now I also need you to participate in, not that I expect you to do somersaults, but do this with your hands. Garoom, garoom, garoom. All right. So Coyote is walking away from the boulder, and suddenly he hears the boulder rolling. Garoom, garoom, garoom. The boulder wants the blanket back. Coyote starts walking a lot faster. He's hustling along there, and he hears a sound behind him. It's the boulder rolling. Garoo, garoo, garoo. So Coyote goes faster and faster, and he runs all night long. He's not getting a hell of a lot of sleep. And he keeps hearing this boulder rolling behind him. Garoo, garoo, garoo. The boulder is coming for its blanket. Sun rises, and Coyote is running out of breath, and he can hear that boulder coming after him. Garoo, garoo, garoo. So happens that he comes to a tree. In the tree, there is a flock of blackbirds. The blackbirds ask Coyote, Coyote, what is your trouble? Coyote says, this boulder keeps chasing me. The blackbird said, we will help. And they fly down and where the boulder is, and they cover the boulder with their flock, and they peck at it, and they break the boulder into small pebbles. And the coyote says, thank you, blackbirds. Now I can rest. And he lies down and leans against that tree. But he hears a rustling sound. It's a sound of pebbles moving together. And after a while, he looks and he sees all the pebbles gathering, and they're reforming into a boulder again. And guess what happens? The boulder starts rolling. Garoom, garoom, garoom. And the coyote, he's tired. He's been running all night long. He doesn't get to rest long under this tree. He's got to keep moving. And the boulder gets closer and closer. Garoom, garoom, garoom. And pretty soon, he can feel the presence of that boulder just inches away. And he stumbles. And the boulder rolls right over the top of him. And he's flat as flatbread. And the boulder takes the blanket back. Now, this sounds like a silly story. What's spiritual about it? What does it teach you and me? Pardon? Exactly. Keep your promises. If you give a promise to someone, keep it. You might get a boulder rolling over you. Next one. This is Raven on top of a clamshell with the first people coming out of it. Raven is featured in several of the mythologies of the Northwest Pacific coast. The Kwakiulu, the Bella Bella, the Bella Kula, the Tlingit, and particularly the Haida Gwaii. If you take a boat along the coast of British Columbia headed north, going from Vancouver, eventually you'll come to a moderate-sized island. This is where the Haida Gwaii people live. They are superb wood carvers. Raven features prominently in several of their stories. And in one story, Raven is walking along the beach, and he's bored. He wants someone to play with. Now, Raven is both bird and spirit in a way that's kind of hard to wrap our minds around today in our society. And he's lonely. And just as Coyote is the trickster character in a lot of southwestern mythologies, Raven is a trickster character in a lot of northwest Pacific mythologies. He looks out to sea, he says, I've looked at the sea before, nothing here. He turns and he looks at the forest. He says, I spent a lot of times in the woods. That's old hat. But then he hears a sound, and he goes and tries to find out where this sound is coming from. And he sees a white clam sitting there on the beach. He says, this is unusual. Clams usually don't make any sounds, but the sound is coming from the clam. And so what he does is he starts to open that clam up, and funny things start crawling out of it. These were the first men. And he says, now I have someone to play with. And Raven has been playing tricks on people ever since. But the men were not entirely happy. They needed somebody. And so they said to Raven, Raven, thank you for freeing us from the clam. But we want company of our own. And so Raven walked along the beach and he came across another clam, and there's a sound coming from it. And so he opened the clam up, and guess what he found? The first woman. And so the woman and the men got together, and they did the things that men and women do. And they had children. And Raven was greatly amused at watching the antics of these creatures called people. No God lifting the mud up like an Eden and making the first person. Somehow they existed in this clam and just need to be freed. Raven is not a god. He's a trickster spirit. There's another story about Raven, not portrayed here in this carving. It's Raven freeing the first people from the clam. Raven lived in a time when the world was dark. Just pitch black. Night all day, night all night. And he sat in his tree. And he kept hearing people walking around and bumping into trees. And he got tired of this. So he flew up into the sky, way high up, where he knew the sky chief lived, and turned himself into a pine needle. Didn't I tell you that Raven is both a spirit and a bird? Sky Chief had a daughter. Every day she'd come out with her water box to collect water from a stream. And Raven, disguised as a pine needle, dropped into that water that she gathered to take back to the house. Now, it so happened that she ended up drinking some of that water. And guess what she swallowed? Pine needle, otherwise known as Raven. Well, time came and she was with child. And she gave birth to the strangest looking child ever. Looked like a baby, but had feathers. The Sky Chief was a proud grandfather. And he was discreet enough not to ask how his daughter got pregnant. But he's a proud grandfather, and he doted on this little baby. But the amazing thing about this baby is that it was growing fast. It went from a suckling baby to a toddler, to a small child that could talk. And the Sky Chief said, "Grandchild, you are growing swift, but I am proud of you. Ask anything you wish, and I will grant it to you." And the child said, "I know that you have a great box in the back of your house. I would like that box." Sky Chief said, "You can have anything but that box." But the child insisted. Of course, this is Raven in disguise. Sky Chief said, "I tell you what, I can't give you the box, but I'll let you see what is in it." And the Sky Chief opened the lid of the box, and inside was a great glowing orb and a lesser glowing orb as well, the sun and the moon. And Raven saw an opportunity that he had been waiting for. And suddenly he turned into his bird form, and he swooped down and he grabbed the sun and the moon in his beak, and he flew away, and he flew over the earth. But you know, that sun was awfully hot, and he spat it out, but not until it singed his feathers. And to this day, the feathers of the raven are black. And the sun and the moon, where he spit them out, now follow their own courses through the sky. And that is how Raven brought light to the world. What do these stories teach us? What do they show us? How are they spiritual? Any guesses? Pardon? They teach us about the world. They also teach us a certain reverence for the world. Where the world was a cursed place before Raven, now because of light, we have a blessing. Next one. This dances also our way of celebrating that which is spiritual. You will, if you go to a powwow, and don't be afraid to go to powwows, they want non-natives to visit. They want you to experience their cultures. Dances often originate in a specific tribe, but have been adopted by other tribes through the powwows. One of those is the jingle dance. It's one of my favorite dances when I go to powwows. Tell you the story behind the jingle dress. You see that there are like little bells or jingles. Actually, jingles are made. I'll tell you a little bit about how they're made. But the story originates among the Anishinabe, who still live in northern Minnesota, live in southern Canada, upper Michigan. There was what we would call a medicine man. And there was a great epidemic that was making many of the people sick. And one of the people that got sick was the medicine man's own granddaughter. And as she lay in a fever on the floor of their house, the medicine man sought a way to heal her and to heal his people, and could find nothing. Finally, exhausted, he went to bed that night and fell into a deep sleep. And during this sleep, he had the vision of 4 women dressed in what would be jingle dresses. And they instructed him how to make the jingle dress and what the jingle dress would represent. And I'll tell you in a minute. He woke up the following morning and he went to his wife, who knew how to make dresses, and he said, I want you to make a dress such and such a way. And by the way, this is one of the more recent traditions. This story takes place about 1900. We can actually date it. During one of the epidemics that some of the tribes have experienced in history. And so she made a jingle dress, and she made 3 others according to his instructions from the dream. And so 4 women put on these jingle dresses, and they learned specific steps. The jingles are made of metal. Typically, they're made from the metal of discarded cans. It's a type of recycling. Go ahead. They chuckle about it too. But the dances are very special, as are the jingles on these dresses. No 2 dresses are alike, exactly alike. Different color combinations, different jingle combinations. And this tradition has spread from tribe to tribe, and where now the jingle dance, performed only by women, or the booger dance is only performed by men. The jingle dance performed by women is at almost every powwow you will go to, performed by members of various tribes. And what is done sometimes to our Western eyes looks like a competition, and they will compete as to who is the best dancer. There's a special meaning to it. You see, jingle dancing is a form of prayer. By doing the jingle dances, these women are expressing the hopes for all indigenous people to be healed. That healing is not only from physical illness, it's also a prayer for healing from the addictions that sweep through many of the tribes today, and also the harm that has been done by colonialism. At this point, I'd like to go to a video that talks about the jingle dance. And then I'll conclude my message with this.
Wausau Creek.
And now we pass our offertory basket. Donations are gratefully welcomed. If you make automatic pledge payments, please place one of the yellow cards indicating the support in the basket. If you'd like your contribution to count towards your annual pledge, please put it in an envelope with your name on it.
Colleen. We're not doing the meditations.
Sounds great. Our closing words are by Robin Wall Kimmerer from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. Now please join me in reading the words provided for the extinguishing of the chalice. We extinguish the chalice here, that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. Now is the time for announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Please, Len. Okay, great.
Okay, if anybody needs a new name tag, see me, I'm the name tag lady. We had a meeting of the music team, or at least people who are interested in incorporating more arts and music into our services yesterday. Good meeting, lots of great ideas. We decided the first thing we need to do is really survey the congregation and find out what you want or what you like that we've already been doing. So a survey will be coming. And I would like to know how many of you like to get a printed program when you come to church on Sunday morning. With a raising of hands, if you like to get a printed program, raise your hand if you like it. Yep, so a minority of you guys. So most of you would be just fine without printed programs. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
Steve Israel, 1 o'clock today is our magic class. And I'm going to teach everyone how to become the stars of their Thanksgiving celebrations. So come join us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa. I just wanted to give an update about the painting. I know that Colleen gave a little bit of announcement earlier, and we passed around the clipboard. If you haven't had a chance to look at the clipboard, please let me know. We are going to be painting, and on the 24th, which is next Sunday, we need to get absolutely everything off the walls and out of the room, everything. So we would really appreciate if you could give us a hand with that. There will be no service the following Sunday, which is the 1st, thank you. No service at all. We were originally going to do like a cookie exchange thing, but we're not doing it because the church is still going to be in disarray, and there's just not a good way to have people here. So no guilt, go out and play. And then the following Saturday, which is the 8th, I believe it's the 8th. 7th? Okay, so the 7th, thank you. The clipboard might have had the wrong date on it then. But that Saturday, we need people to come in and put everything back in our newly painted room. So I know it's a Saturday and it's hard to give up your Saturday, but we really need a lot of people because it's a lot of work. So please, 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 please sign up for that and help us out. And then Sunday, the next day, we'll have a beautifully painted area, and we should have service as usual at that point. So if you have any questions at all, please give me, you can email me, you can call me, you can talk to me here. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, no, about that?
Yeah.
Nope, sorry about the 8th, that was my fault.
Oh, no problem.
So if you need the clipboard back, it hasn't left the room.
Buffy was just saying online that the Brown Bag Food Project is still looking for donations for their Thanksgiving bags. You can go to their website or their Facebook page to find out more about what specifically they need if you're interested.
Thank you. After the closing song, we invite everyone to stay in person for coffee hour. Our closing song is Break Not the Circle of Unbending Love, number 323. Please rise as you are willing and able.